You're watching Rules of the Game with Mark Cisco, brought to you by these fine sponsors. Grand Lake Roofing, Fowler's TV, Family Audiology Associates, American Legion Post 323, Varsity Lanes, Outdoors Equipment Rental, Spring Street Storage, Mr. Bank, Plus One Professionals, Albert Sporting Goods.
You were renovating St. Mary's Foundry, Larry Shop Auto Sales, Tap House at the Square, TSC, Cody Plumbing and Heating, Roots Pub, Dr. Mike Company, Guaneri's Pizzeria, EFW Post 9289, and Miller Funeral Home.
Hello and welcome to Rules of the Game with Mark Cisco. I'm your host, Zach Farrell. Each week we try to bring you local official Mark Cisco in to give us his thoughts on some of the clips from the previous game. Mark, thanks for joining me.
Zach, it's always a pleasure to be here.
Mark, playoff week.
Yes.
So we are going
week
marching into the playoffs.
Let's go.
Home game for the Riders against Wauseon. Hopefully they do well tonight. Mark, as an official, do things change at all when they go into the playoff season?
Well, the game doesn't change, obviously. They will tell us that make any fouls that occur be there, which really means make them no ticky-tacky stuff in the playoffs. Probably crews aren't going to change the way they think about it. I mean, they've had 10 games to think about the season, and they're going to do what they do. But there's a little bit of a mentality change. You know, you win, you go on, you lose, you go home. And those start to tighten up as you get closer to the state tournament, not necessarily the regional games. And some of these games in the regional level will be lopsided just by the nature of the playoff system. But
16 teams now per region.
Correct. So you have 8 games in a region, so you're playing number 1 seed versus 16 sometimes and whatnot. But it matters not to the officials. The crews will be 5 or 6 man crews here to start out, because in the first couple rounds, the OSHA office uses basically your same crew and tries to get guys into the playoff system. After that, then you're going to have crews that are mixed and matched with various people, normally in your district, sometimes across different areas of the state, depending on who's doing what, and those crews will be 6-man crews.
I was curious about that because one of the big stories this year for playoffs is that all playoff games are on Friday night. Or it used to be Friday and Saturday.
Correct.
We know there's already a shortage of officials.
Right.
Has there been some scuttle about that? Is it
No, not really. I mean, there's enough crews out there at the varsity level to accomplish that. Now, I'm not saying that there might be a one-off situation where somebody might have to play on a Saturday, and you're going to find that. And as you get deeper into the playoffs, you're going to find that anyway, with schools being involved in volleyball, soccer, whatever. But
multiple teams using the same home field?
Multiple teams using the same venue. As we get into it, we're beyond the first 2 weeks, then all games are tried very hardly to play at neutral sites.
Right.
So, and you may have a couple teams or whatever that might want to use the same neutral site, so they'll adjust, and it happens.
Yeah.
So for the officials, they get another week or 2, and then you start whittling down the number of guys that are necessary as the games decrease.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got 11 clips from the game Friday night against Bath. We're going to look at some of those clips from that game and talk about that and more right after this.
You're watching Rules of the Game with Mark Cisco, brought to you by these fine sponsors. Grand Lake Roofing, Fowler's TV, Family Audiology Associates, American Legion Post 323, Varsity Lanes, Outdoors Equipment Rental, Spring Street Storage, Mr. Bank, Plus One Professionals, Albert Sporting Goods.
You were renovating St. Mary's Foundry, Larry Shop Auto Sales, Tap House at the Square, TSC, Cody Plumbing and Heating, Roots Pub, Dr. Mike Company, Guaneri's Pizzeria, EFW Post 9289, and Miller Funeral Home.
We're back with Rules of the Game with Mark Cisco. Mark, let's jump right into the clips.
Let's do it.
This was one that you and I discussed a little off the air on Saturday morning, I think. This was the first punt for St. Mary's.
Oh, yes. That one and only for St. Mary's.
One and only, that's right.
Correct.
Yeah, the snap went above the head. Hunter Sprague did a nice job again of recovering, finding that ball, and getting a punt off.
Right.
Punt only went a couple yards past the line of scrimmage, but it was muffed right there, and St. Mary's fell on the ball.
It was, fortunate right there. That's a good play. So that punt netted 1 yard. And It was touched by the receivers, so any touching by the receivers at that point beyond the line of scrimmage is going to be a first down for somebody.
And that's what that's what I want to talk about. So that was a unique case where a muff punt didn't go past the first down marker. Why does that count as a first down?
Well, because it was caught by the receivers, and it was caught beyond the line of scrimmage. They snapped it from the 49. It was touched fairly clearly. It was touched at the 50, so it wasn't by much, but it was touched. So that means whoever recovers it next will have a first down out of it. And unfortunately, the Riders dealt with it, so we moved the stakes, and they gained a little bit out of it.
So if that would have not made it back to the line of scrimmage, could it still be muffed?
If it had only, let's say, bounced at the 40 and he messed with it there, all right, and then the Riders picked it up, it would have been still a first down because we have R receiving or touching the football. Okay. So here's an interesting scenario, though. What if the ball bounces like they're at the 50, none touched, and goes back towards the Riders' own end zone and is picked up by the Riders? Can they advance it? And the answer is yes, they can.
Wow.
Yes, they can. Now, they would have to get to the line to gain to keep it.
Yeah.
But they could have picked it up and ran
still
with
a live
it
ball.
because it was behind the line of scrimmage.
And it wasn't touched by the
right.
receivers
And obviously the
yet.
receivers could have picked it up and ran with it as well.
Wow.
Unless and in this case, the receiver gave a fair catch signal, so he couldn't have ran with the football if he recovered it, so to speak.
Could have been a lot of things happening.
A lot of things happened, and unfortunately, the officials were right on it. And the only error that officials made on that point was my umpire right there. I know him very well. He's mad at himself. He threw a beanbag down at that point, and he shouldn't have. There was no reason for it.
But
their condition, there was no fumble. There was no fumble of the ball or whatever, and he kicked himself all the way to the locker room at halftime. And that's a minor thing type situation. But they handled it very well.
And importantly, the reason I talked to you about it was Joe and I and you had not remembered a team keeping the ball for an entire quarter like St. Mary's did for the first quarter.
Never in my tens of years remember that situation happening. Yeah, you might keep it 8 minutes, 9 minutes possibly, but never 12 plus going over into the next quarter.
And so I wanted to ask, from a technical standpoint, was that a change of possession? And you said it was not, right?
It was not technically a change of possession because the receivers never had the football. So basically it counts as an offensive play for the Riders. They get, a yard out of it, basically. And
a first down.
And a first down. So, it doesn't look very good for the punter's stats. I mean, one punt for 1 yard. But,
technically under the rules, the Riders kept possession the entire first quarter into the second quarter.
Because the receivers never had possession of the football.
Right.
So
a muff punt doesn't change possession.
You might check that with the official statistician up in the box, but I don't know how he would have dealt with it. But I'm pretty sure from my perspective, it shouldn't have counted as a change of possession.
We'll talk to Andy Ramel and
see
how the stats.
See what the real ruling is.
But pretty amazing to see new things still here in your
always
after 40 years.
After 40 years, you keep saying new things, right?
We're going to jump into the second clip now. This was an interesting one as well. A hurdling called on Defiance here on the extra point or on the
Bath,
field goal on the field goal attempt on Bath. Yep, same color. I mixed Bath and Defiance.
And and when they threw the flag, I'm like, all right, what went on there? And I didn't really catch it. But
we have an end zone view as well that kind of shows
but it apparently was a no doubter. Otherwise, the officials would have let it go.
So, it's hurdling anytime you leave your feet and go over another player and land? Or do you have to touch the player?
The definition of hurdling here is basically if you're leading with a knee or a foot in a classic hurdler pose. If you think about a track guy going over a hurdle, so that's the definition. So, just jumping straight up or diving face first. Yeah, that was a hurdle there. He jumped right over, used his hand, brought that leg up, and that was a good call there.
Okay.
And from what I know, talking to the officials after the game, Bath didn't dispute it whatsoever. I mean, it happened, and away you go. So
if you're going to jump over the line like that, make it head first or make it
And there's a play out
up
there on the internet going around where there's a defender that times the snap just right and dives face first and catches the quarterback with the football, and down they go. Perfectly fine because it doesn't fit the definition of hurling. Now, who can do that, right? I mean, you get one player out of 7,000 kids that can do something like that, and it's not illegal. So
and you got to time it up right.
You got to time it just right. Yes.
All right. This next play was a block in the back called against Bath. I thought it was a little ticky-tacky when I was watching it during the game. The arms are extended there, though.
Oh, that's a good call, though.
Yeah.
That because it's right at the point of attack.
Yeah.
All right. He doesn't make that block, and the offensive, the defensive guy comes loose, right? He's not at a constant contact. If we can see it again, he's in him, and then he lets him go, and then we push again. So, and it was right at the point of contact. He doesn't make that contact. We may have a tackle right there. So was it a big push? But it's enough. I mean, and it was right in front of the officials. Come on.
Yeah. And so it got him an extra maybe 5 yards or
yeah, I mean they're gonna tackle on 10 on top of the end of the run, and we had a first down out of it.
Right. You can see number 12 right there, just a little bit pushing the back.
Yeah, so. if the defender would have made contact, or the offensive guy would have maintained contact, and ended up on his back, would have been fine. But he came loose and gave the shove, and when you get those arms extended, then you're in trouble.
Well, Bath continued to drive down the field. In this next play, we're talking about we had a false start on Bath here, just a little one from the right side from the tackle.
And this shot here, if you could pause that right there, and of course I'm setting about right up in line with that football.
Yeah.
If you look at the left guard and the left tackle.
Wow, they were completely off the ball.
So basically, to be considered on the line of scrimmage, their helmet and or hands must break an imaginary plane that runs through the center's basically waist. Now, I'm looking at that and I'm going, I mean, you can almost see daylight between the center's rear end and the top of the helmet.
Yeah.
And they tell us if we've got a situation where they're back not breaking the waist, but you don't see daylight, that's a good time to get in there and say, you need to get up on the line of scrimmage and to warn them. And there's only going to be one. But whenever you see daylight between the rear and the top of the helmet, that's a flag right away. So, in my opinion, if they hadn't warned them already, that's a good place for a strong warning right there. And if they had, then that's a foul for an illegal formation, because that would be too many men in the backfield.
Yeah.
And I noticed it on that play, and the next play they were better. So, and I dropped it after that.
And false start nonetheless by the right tackle.
Nonetheless, yep.
So. Maybe they were thinking about calling it at that time and ended up...
and we had all kinds of flags, 3 flags
Yeah.
on that, so it was an obvious false start.
Yeah.
So, yep.
This next play then was Bath continued to drive down the field, and Rough Riders got a big stop at the goal line. It was unclear from our angle and our view how close he was to getting into the end zone, so I thought I'd share this just for people. Like right there, it looks like maybe he fell in the end zone, but we looked at the end zone view on the next clip, and you can see he was clearly a yard short or half a yard short of the end zone.
All right, well, good for. I'd rather have it like from the pylon cam, but
yeah.
Maybe next year, Rider Nation Station will have the pylon cams going on.
We'll talk to Alberts about enhancing their pylons.
And he was. And the official on that play, the linesman on that play, was right on it. He was standing at the goal line when the ball carrier came that way, and he didn't hesitate a bit. Clearly, calm, controlled, had him short, and in fact, it is short. So, tough place for the Riders to take over, but it is not a touchdown. We maintained the shutout at that point.
Well, I think the Riders ended up going 99 yards.
I think they did.
This next play, though, was, I think, part of that drive, a couple of false starts by the Riders. This one was just on the right end, and he just sort of falls forward and keeps going. Now, we talked, is it possible for him to fall forward and just set his other hand down? No, he's. I mean, you may see a back that will get a chance is leaning just slightly a little bit once in a while. I've been known to let that go, and others I've caught, but that was clearly before the snap. And, right.
Yeah, it was ugly.
Well, I think St. Mary's scored with just a few seconds left, and then they tried a kick here right before the half with just a few seconds left, and they tried to squib it.
Okay.
And this was a very quick knee taken from the Bath kick returner.
I remember, yep.
And I guess my question is, how does a clock operator handle something like this?
Well,
are they supposed to tap it and tap it off? I mean, because on the field the clock didn't move. It stayed the same.
Obviously, actually, it did. It moved a second.
Did it go a second?
It did go a second,
okay.
Because I looked. Obviously, you've got, as soon as the ball is touched by the receivers in any place, the clock in theory should start. It shouldn't wait for the officials to start the clock because that's going to be a start to wind and then kill it right away. He's not quite down yet, so if it's a half a second, is it a tenth of a second? And of course, if I remember right, the scoreboard at the stadium does not have tenths of seconds run on it. It's just whole seconds. So
it's true.
So it's typically on a situation like that, most teams and most coaches and whatever will accept a 1 second. A 1 second runoff, so to speak. It's not fair to have no time because obviously he was upright when he touched it. So, and do you run it longer than that? In that situation, there's a touch, boom, 1 second. Anyway,
to just explore all possibilities, if he's somehow already down on his knee when he catches the ball, should the clock go at all?
In theory, maybe 100th or 10th of a second or something like that. Yeah. But really, truthfully, he's already on the knees, he's down. And if a coach needed that second back, I would probably grant him that second back if he was already on the ground because it's a touch and he's down. It's just bang, bang, and there's really no time to start, stop.
It's like instant.
Yes, it is.
Kind of, and that sometimes happens on an onside kick or something like that.
Correct.
So. Okay, so this next play was the final play that Bath tried to run then in the first half. And it was a little, I guess my question is, does there have to be air between the ball for that to be an incomplete pass or a fumble?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, is he handing it off or is he throwing it?
Yeah.
Let's just look at that again because that's a good question because that's definitely a handing situation. That's not on the running back. That goes to the quarterback.
And that's the way it was called on the field, but it just made me think about it. That could be very close there.
It could be. And we've seen short little forward shovel passes that may only travel 2 feet or whatever. That's in theory, if it's forward, a forward pass. So if he had shoveled it that way, and let go of it. See, what we have here is we have one player in contact with it when the second player contacts it again.
Okay.
Or so at the same time.
That's the difference, is there has to be contact at the same time.
Yeah, so he's still got the handle, and we contact the running back, touches it while the quarterback still has it. That's going to be a handoff. If he'd let go, he could have just flipped it up.
Yeah.
And it would have been considered a forward pass at that point.
And hard for any of the officials to see it when it's that close and in there. But
yeah,
they're going to always probably go with it.
The wing guys are going to see something like that. And if you've been around long enough, if you got to judge between was it forward, was it a pass, or was it not, you're going to rule it incomplete to stop the clock. So, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, and fortunately for St. Mary's, the clock did run completely down there. Bath didn't try to do much after that.
Right.
I think that was enough. So we had another chop block called on St. Mary's. I did not think this one was good. Was good like some of the ones that had been.
Well,
in the past.
let me give you a little inside scoop there on that one. That inside scoop is. The Bath coaches had been writing the umpire pretty much most of the game about something like this because they knew St. Mary's, they comes out and they shoot their center out and whatnot. So this was probably more close enough. Yeah, I'm going to throw this, and it's going to quiet the coaching staff down from my end of it, and away we go. Is that the right thing to do? No. Do we have help coming over on that low block? Yes, we do. I mean.
It just looked like the Bath defender was already on the ground before anybody really touched him.
And I would not disagree with you on that. All right.
I think we might have an end zone view for this.
I would not disagree with you on that. I mean.
Oh no, we don't. So.
It's fine. And maybe sometimes those chop blocks are tough because
it's in the next spot.
A lot of times, you'll have the initial block, and then the second guy might just put a hand on him and not really do anything. Well, coaches see that. Oh, that's contact. You got to call that. Well, So
there's an end zone view too. I thought it was interesting here. You can see right in the center of your screen. He's just kind of laying down.
Yeah, he just kind of laid down, and it might have been a case where the official caught it late, or not. He's standing there. I'm not. So. I don't like that position anyway. You got too many people running at you all the time. I was always in the back where they're running away from me.
Gotcha. So. This next play we have was an offsides on the kickoff. I thought St. Mary's kind of got away with it. I don't know if you noticed it because this is kind of where you were sitting in the stands. Unfortunately, I think number 44, Owen Ott, there was a few different St. Mary's players that might have been technically off, but Owen was a little bit more obvious than others. So he's right there next to the kicker. And he's a couple steps past.
He might have been a half a step. If we can we stop that at the point where the kicker comes through with his foot possibly, and see right there. Yes, obviously the kicking leg is still in the air. We've got 1, 2, and if you count the far sideline, the helmet over the line, technically, when we treat that line as a plane of glass, are they breaking it? Yes. But at that point in the game, and I don't know when this was, at that point the game's maybe out of hand, and they're not going to get too ticky-tacky. If this was an onside kick situation, I believe they probably would have nailed it without a doubt.
Well, and I just thought it was something to watch in the future, and hopefully the St. Mary's coaches saw that too, so we don't get some call like that.
Because somebody's going to call that. I'm wondering, the back judge was like, and decided not to.
Yeah. This next play was a face mask call against Bath. Really hard to see on the side angle, but I thought we'd include it just to show the difference. And Joe and I weren't sure what was called, and then the flag comes in there, but you can see on the end zone view, and we saw on a replay on Rider Nation Station that it was very clear. You can kind of see the defender right there just grab onto the mask.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Yep.
Craig gets that very well, and he's looking right at it, and he does a nice job. Keeps officiating at the time and getting to the goal line in case he gets away. That's you have to get those. Those are the big ones that they tell us to get.
Now, one thing that I need refreshing on, because I said this during the broadcast, but so if that's a 15-yarder, that's a personal foul, so that's added on to the end of the play?
It's a personal foul. It was a definitely grab and twist.
Right.
So and the play ends up what at the 4?
Correct.
So even if we have a 5-yarder there, we're going to go half the distance.
Correct.
Right? And here we're going to go half the distance. So the penalty wasn't much.
So face mask is always added on to the end of the play?
For a defensive foul at that point, yes. If
okay.
It's in that situation, yes. Now, if a foul happens while the ball is in the air, now we could go back to previous spots. So we got different. It just depends on the type of play that's being run.
Okay, because
this one here was a running play, and it ends, and it's going to get tacked on.
I told Joe that I said, well, I guess they got to decide whether they want to take that penalty or not, because I didn't realize it always gets tacked on to the end of the play.
There's going to be no deciding there. If I'm the referee, I don't even ask the coaches. It's just like, we're going to tack it on, and away we go. The only way you ask is if they need a better angle for a field goal, and there's maybe 1 second left on the clock or something like that.
Give you the half.
But here they're just going to tack it on, and away you go.
Gotcha. Yep. And the last play we got here, we've heard a lot this week or the past few weeks about the Philadelphia Eagles and it's called the brotherly shove or the tush push. This was a little bit of a St. Mary's version here at the end of the game. You can see the running backs sort of come into the pile, but they're pushing the pile. And we've talked about this before. For the high school level, you're not supposed to push a specific player, but you can push the pile, right?
Correct. Helping the runner is a foul, and push from behind, directly from behind. And did the running back run into the back of the quarterback? Probably. But in that situation, as a referee or a center judge behind there, looking at that, going, okay, was he already across the goal line? Was he not? When did it occur? And that situation happened in a state final several years ago. I mean, Joe, you might have been on the game at that point, truthfully, where they called helping the runner, and all heck broke loose.
It's a very rarely called thing as well. Even when there's clear examples of somebody pushing the runner down the field, I haven't seen it called very much.
Well, they've talked about that a little bit more. Pushing the pile is fine, but pushing directly the runner or grabbing the runner and helping him along, that's easy. That's going to stand out. That's a little bit more muddled. Is okay, we're right there at the goal line, and that's when you see it, or we got a first down. But for us to call that's got to be pretty clear. So you got bodies going forward. He touches him, but was Cody already in the end zone at that point?
Right.
So, and if he was, then the foul didn't happen because it's a dead ball.
And I wonder if we'll see we'll see it brought up more in these playoffs because it is popular being talked about in the NFL right now.
But it's going to be a case where it's going to stand out.
Right.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Mark, for joining me. We had some interesting clips as always, and hopefully we have some more good clips from the St. Mary's victory over Wauseon this week. And we'll be back next week. So goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for watching Rules of the Game with Mark Cisco, brought to you by all of these fine sponsors.
Grand Lake Roofing, Bowers TV, Family Audiology Associates, American Legion Post 323, Varsity Lanes, Ugly's Equipment Rental, Spring Street Storage, Mr. Bank, Plus One Professionals, Auburn Sports. We were renovating St. Mary's Foundry, Larry Shop Auto Sales, Tap House at the Square, TSC, Cody Plumbing and Heating, Roots Pub, Dr. Mike Compton, Gwinnett Pizzeria, EFW Post 9289, and Miller Funeral Home.